I went to the junker, I got the replacement. Absolutely two identical pieces, the only difference is mine have a cracked bolt inside and the thread is gone, and this one doesn't have any cracked bolt and it's ready to be installed into this neon. First of all, we will install this new mount. As I mentioned before, I'm installing all mounts are brand new, bought them on eBay, all three of them. Just want to show you the old mounts. There is no way to install it back because as you can see, there is huge amount of cracks everywhere. That's why sometimes when engine running it squeals. This one is completely broken, and the one in the bottom you can even take it out, and here you can actually take it out as well. So that's why all three of them will be new. Let's start installing the first motor mount. It's supposed to be installed like this, but in order to insert it, because the space is very tight, you have to try in a different angles. The new middle mount is in, you have to tighten the screws. I tightened 3 bolts, very hard to reach the bolt number 4. You can see it's not tightened yet, just use your hands and then the ratchet. The new middle motor mount is installed. The next, I have to change the power steering from this assembly to this assembly. To do it, I have to remove those 3 bolts. When you're rotating, you can see bolt number 1, then bolt number 2, and then bolt number 3. You have to remove all 3 of them, and I will be able to remove power steering column from this assembly and swap it to this one. I'm using this 13mm key and a breaker to do it. The first bolt is here. The bolts actually are very tight, that's why I'm using the extension pipe. The first bolt is loose. The first one is removed, the second one is located here. When 3 of them was removed, I actually can take the steering pump out from the assembly. And I need to swap it to the assembly which I bought on the junker. By the way, it was almost $30 for this piece, and plus very hard to remove it. I dropped the engine on the junker to remove this piece out. This one is from the junker with a red mark, reinstalling the steering pump on it, and this is my original one. This one was $30 on a junker, as I mentioned before, but as you can see, the brand new one cost $262. Since I'm replacing the steering pump, I decided that it will be easier to install this assembly without steering pump. The next step, you have to install it. This is the hardest part, because the space is very tight between. Install this part while your engine is inside of your neon. You have to put engine as upper as possible. The mount is positioned inside, assembly is positioned inside. The next step is to mount it with those 3 long bolts. Like one of the hardest parts, because it's always not enough space here. This is the bolt on top. It was pretty easy. It's very hard to install. I only installed the one upper bolt. This one that is located right there, I just put in, but I could not even tighten him. Only one bolt is tightened, and bolt number 3 is still out in the bottom. I will install him in the last moment. Right now I'm lowering the engine as much as I can. Alright, when I lower the engine, right now it's only mounted on one bolt. Engine is lowered as much as possible, and right now you can see this bottom bolt. I can install him through here and he tightens up pretty good. And this one that I mentioned before is right there. I can tighten him from the bottom as well. Right there. So I recommend you to tighten the upper bolt from top and then lower engine as much as possible, and you can insert the lower bolt from the bottom, but the second bolt you cannot insert from the bottom. You can only insert him when your engine is maximally jacked up. Insert him, but you can tighten him from the bottom, and this you can insert and tighten from the bottom. Of course, it's better if you will remove this low pressure line from here all the way to here. It will give you more space, but I don't want to drain the freon from my system. All three bolts are tightened up. This one is very tight, and this one, which is here, is tight. But the one that is there, the third one, is very, very hard to tighten. That's why I will firstly mount the vehicle on the middle mount. This is how you have to tighten the last one. You have to jack up the engine as maximum as possible, and you have to insert the ratchet when the socket is already on top of the bolt. Success, I made him tight, the last one. The problem is that, as you can see, this low AC line is if you want to drain all your freon and remove it, go ahead. You will lose like 30 bucks, but you will be able to tighten him without any hassle. But if you don't want, you have to be able to squeeze the ratchet somewhere between the line. Extension not gonna help you. After I successfully installed this assembly, the hardest part in this repair, I found the best bolt on the junker, not such type of rusty. This one, no rust, the best bolt ever. I will mount the engine on the middle mount right now. The bolt is inserted using the T55 bead. Looks like a star. Tightening him to the new mount, little by little. Alright, I have successful mount. This is the most important part. I tighten it to specs. It's tight. I need to remove this bracket, needs to be removed from here and reinstalled on my new assembly. Use 15mm socket to remove those two bolts and the brake bar with the pipe. I installed it there. Tighten them up to specs. Yeah, right now is the top one. Then power steering, and then the wires after.
You have the power steering too?
Yes.
Wow.
Upper mount is piece of cake. 18mm socket. The middle mount is the hardest compared to the middle. Upper and lower is nothing. The power sink is partially installed. It already becoming late night. The lower mount is more important right now. Before I will remove the jack. This is what I bought, and this is the original. Original have this. Need to use this bead to remove it, and then to reinstall it on a replacement part. When I replaced those, I noticed that the upper have the same. You have to swap this piece from your original mount. They are pretty stubborn. I'm using the T30 bead. It's a set of the beads. I'm using the T30, this size, T30. It's reinstalled on the new mount. Those bolts are pretty tight. even a little bit stripping it. You can see some damages, but not that bad. It's a T30 bit. Next is lower mount. It's going like this. This goes not from other side, it goes from this side and screws onto the thread, just like this. But of course you have to put it like this and you can mount it. As soon as you put him in, you tighten the bolt here and then you can insert this one right there and it will mount him to the engine. I couldn't install the lower mount because maybe the vehicle is not straightened up everywhere. Don't have that much space, that's why. The vehicle needs to be straightened. One of my tires are upper. Maybe because of this. I will finish with the power steering pump. The last bolt of the steering pump is here. You only can use mini ratchet, it's 13mm. You have to go through all these holes to rotate like this, to insert the 13mm socket inside and to tighten them. This is how it looks for you to better understand it. It's like this. This bolt is on top and this is in the bottom and this is one in the middle. Right now I am here. I'm here in the bottom. The last bolt, number 3. Just take your time on this step, it takes time. Here always this low pressure line is blocking you. If you don't want to drain your freon, you will need to spend some time using the variety of different ratchets and sockets. Right now I'm using medium ratchet and a long socket. As you can see, I'm tightening the bolt, the second one. It's almost tight. When you're done with those 3 bolts, which are holding the power steering in place through these holes, you make sure that all of them tight, all 3 of them. You need to put the bracket back on. Of course it's better to remove the coolant hose, but I was able to squeeze through. It's holding on 2 15mm, this one and this one, and on top it's one 12mm. It goes just right there. When everything is tightened up, it's 2 15mm which are holding the bracket to the engine body and 12mm which is attaching to the steering pump, this bracket. You can install the belt, the authority belt back on, and the tensioner. For the tensioner you're using the 18mm key, like this. 18mm. The belt is installed. Since the power steering column was removed and some liquid was lost, refill it with a power steering fluid to the proper level. The next thing that I'm doing, I'm resoldering all wires because compressor ripped 8 wires. I have to resolder them back. Not very easy to solder. 8 broken. I will use the solder kit, the flux, some flux, solder, before I will strip them, the ends, right there. To do better color matchup while I will be resoldering wire harness, I took the same color wires from the junker, so I will be able to solder exactly each color that I need. It's extremely hard to work here on this resoldering, even harder than to put all these mounts, because very hard underneath I made the same color. Right now I will extend the red one. Successfully soldered one of those. There is 7 more on my way. All wires are soldered back. Right now I have to isolate everything with tape. All connections. All connections are soldered. I did not mount them yet. Right now I have to replace fuses that are burned. The lights fuses was burned. The high beam lights, most of them need to replace all burned of them. I have a lot of spares. Almost all fuses are burned. The wipers, fuse number 20 wipers is burned, need to be replaced. All motor mounts completely broke, cracked inside, broken, and 3 installed new mounts. The lower one, I also need to install the support for the lower one, but motor mount is already installed. The upper one and the middle one. Install the support and you're good to go. Everything is ready. All wires are soldered and isolated. All wire harness. Put the zip ties. All motor mounts are new. Let's put the tire back. And after all repairs are done, let's check. Engine light is off. Power is illuminating. All lights off. So far so good. Let's check the lights outside. The turning signals, everything did not work before because the vehicle was very corroded. The short circuit light works.